So in today's video, we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. As you know, last week we covered a lot of the crazy tweets and, from CEOs on Twitter and companies that just were a little out of the line. So it's nice to kind of compile those. It's good evergreen material to look back and say, wow, 2022, 2021, 2020, and so forth were pretty crazy, especially in the OTC / penny stocks, whatever you'd like to call it. So I thought to myself, I said, it would be a good idea. Why don't we do a top 10 biggest disasters in penny stocks? And of course, I'll follow it up with top 10 biggest runners from 2022, but I thought this one might be a little bit more fun to do first. So today we're going to go through and cover what I feel were 10 of the biggest implosions, disasters, catastrophes, you name it. Everything from gap downs, caveat emptors, failed mergers, and so forth. So I compiled this list. I went on Twitter and I asked a bunch of people, a couple of the chats, said, hey, what did you guys experience? What was your biggest loss or how? So a lot of this list isn't from a stock that you may have bought and it bled down. This is a lot of these were out of shareholders' control, to where a lot of the news came after hours, or came in the morning, or just came out of nowhere and just gapped down and so forth. So let's go ahead and get into the video. I think it's going to be a fun one. All right, as we get into the video, just remember, this isn't bashing in any way. I was in a lot of these stocks. We all take losses. It happens. And I'll cover some of the ones that I was in. But I mean, just looking back through this list, it's like, how did we survive 2022? And maybe that's why OTC is a little bit more quiet in 2023. We still have our runners. We still have stocks that are moving and being accumulated and so forth. News coming out. But I mean, once you go through this list and you really look back and you're like, wow, like we got beaten bad, with some of these. So, some of these I did, go through and dodge a few, but, some are pretty rough. So with number 10 on our list, we have BOMO. So I never actually got into this stock, but I know it had good DD behind it. And, it had a NASDAQ management. I never really got too far into it, but I know it had a really strong shareholder base. And I believe they said they weren't going to do a reverse split. Then I think they issued a shareholder letter saying they were, but in that shareholder letter was some really derogatory information. I guess kind of, I don't want to say signaling out some shareholders or what have you, but either way, at the time it was what, 0007, 0008, maybe 001, and it's currently at 0001. So, it's had its time, but I know a lot of people still believe in the stock. So like I said, not bashing in any way, but, for somebody to believe in something that's strong and then now it's basically super ultra bottom, it's always tough. So at number 10, we had BOMO. At number 9 on the list, we have XCPL. So the reason XCPL is on this list, they've had 2 failed mergers. So they did a letter of intent and, it had a nice little run and then, that backed out or that had issues or whatever and then it failed. So then it got accumulated again. Then they announced this really nice merger. And it ran all the way up to what, 1 cent, 2 cent, and then completely collapsed after that merger had failed as well. And they followed that up with a Reg A to, I guess, fund the merger that they were trying to get or trying to re-get. I don't know. Doesn't matter what it is. But either way, that had a gap down. They had basically mentioned news like how, mergers failed or, it's going to take some extra time and, basically just plummeted. At the time it was, what, 002. Now it's in trips. So from 2 cents down to 1 cent. Down to 005, 002, whatever. So, it's definitely a rough one, especially for shareholders that, believed in that merger. And maybe it'll still come to fruition. Like I said, not bashing, just pointing it out. And number 8, this one I wasn't. IFXY. So this was a really cool merger that they had talked about bringing, Mi Pulpe, and a lot of different brands and products under this umbrella. And there was no current dilution. It was a good share structure was what 2-3 bills, so a little bit on the heavier side. But yeah, recently in the past few months they announced, hey, guess what? Merger's out after what, 5-6 months. Just completely collapsed again. Gap down in the morning. Everybody lost their money. It's like, gosh. And that's what happens with these penny stocks is if that news hits after hours, you don't get that chance to sell. That thing it's going down. I mean, fast. So, you tend to wake up Could be minus 30%, 50%, 90%, which we'll talk about some of the ones going forward. But yeah, I had a lot of friends in that one too, and that was a bummer of a day. And, it's something that we were dealing with like every couple of months was this. I mean, shareholders were taking hits left and right, especially in 22. And now you look back at it and you're like, wow, it's something. But number 7 is PUGE. So number 7 on our list is Puge. And, we had, what was it, Karen and the hospital, and, it's going to have to be this big merger acquisitions, and they were going to work over, and I don't even remember, this is Guatemala, who knows, Puerto Rico, that's what it was. And same thing, it was like Karen left the company can't do its filings, company's not an expert market. It's like, how can you not do your filings? Like, SEC shell, get it done. But same thing, CEO left, merger failed. So, we got the news after hours or in the morning and stock down 80%. You're like, gosh. So, yeah, I mean, that was a tough one as well. And number 6, so this one has had its moments of, up and down, and it's EEENF. So, as an oiler, especially because if you trade options, you might trade USO, you might trade ZOM, XOM, and oilers can have gap ups, gap downs all the time, depending on news. But, EENF, they had stated, as far as their drill and their well site, I guess it didn't produce the amount they had wanted, or they didn't find any. So same thing, gap down in the morning, I think it was 1 or 2 cents, gap down to like 0.006. So that was another tough one because a lot of people really believed that, hey, this could be the one, which a lot of oilers can. You get under the right, oiler stock, oil, energy, and so forth, you can really make big gains off of it. And it's foreign stock as well. So, that hard, conversion from overnight, being in a different country is always tough. And then, so number 5 on the list, we have the custos, or as we say, the custodian stocks. So if you remember in 2021, the custodian stocks were very strong. I mean, they ignited OTC markets, penny stocks, because there's all that speculation. So many people were going after these shells and saying, hey, we're going to bring a merger, and that it's merger season. You figure they're going to do the shells, they're going to get the court, they're going to get granted, they're going to clean up the shell, they're going to have a merger. I mean, that is just endless stocks for days and days and days for catalyst. But none of them came to fruition, and we had a lot of issues. So, I know a lot of alpha stocks, they had issues, and then SSM Monopoly, same thing, and then we had Acropolis, same thing, and then you had George Sharp, and he's actually been taking a little while to clean up his shells and so forth, but same thing, what do we have, JPEX, which is on this list right here, and they had issues with court and the Hovendick guy, and then gap down. I think it gapped down twice, but then it ran back up. So wild movement, very volatile. And then FBCD, everybody thought it was the merger of the century. Holding its ground, 0102. Just being strong. And then they announced, was it a t-shirt shop merger and a mall. And, same thing, once they announced who the CEO was going to be and so forth, hammered down, got killed. And the same thing with GVSI, that couldn't go pink. So a lot of shareholders had to wait over a year, as Sharp worked through those filings. Luckily, he brought it pink, and it had a nice run. So, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Well, I wouldn't say always. With some of these, there's light at the end of the tunnel. So I know he's working on GVSI, getting shares cleaned up and so forth. So, that's a good long play. So, but the same thing with the custodian stocks is no real big merger came out of them. And that's what everybody was expecting. So that took up a lot of liquidity. So there's crazy issues. So I won't go through and, go through all of them. But, the mergers were just a little underwhelming, a little lackluster. So, that just, it kind of drained a lot of people's accounts. But number 4 on our list today is TXTM. So I've covered this one a lot. I used to love this stock. It was just crazy. It was different. The company was very active with what they were doing, with growth plans and just out there, but it was very fun. A lot of volume always, even as a larger share structure, this thing was always getting volume. So I was a big fan of it. It was fun, but it got caveat emptored. So, when you get a caveat emptor, it is hard to come back from that. That's one thing to be an expert market due to filings. But if you go caveat emptor, you get the skull and crossbones, you're going to need a lot of work. You're going to need attorneys, audits, it's a long process for sure. So, same thing. That took out a lot of liquidity as well. But, it didn't, even though it did gap down, it did kind of move up. I know Canadian buyers pushed it up a little bit. So you had a chance to get out at least, not too bad of a loss. But now it's down a lot more. So we'll see if they can ever bring that out. But yeah, that was a fun stock, and I definitely missed that one. But that's the thing. It's like you never know. And then what they were just, OTC markets was just hitting these things on Fridays. Caveat emptor. And feel bad because a lot of friends in these stocks too, and it's always tough to see. I mean, some people have little, some have a lot. So I definitely feel for everybody because I had some TXTM as well, and I saw that and I was like, come on. But it happens. We're still here, we're still kicking, we're still fighting. So that's what we got to do. But so now we're going to move into the top 3 on our list, and it's what a list it's been. But number 3 is TGGI. So the reason TGGI is so far up on this list is because of the strong shareholder base. They held this thing up multiple pennies, even with the size of the share structure. This thing got an AS raise. It got, everything thrown at it. And then it would dip and it would climb back. It had some of the biggest shareholders I've ever seen with tons of money in this stock. I know somebody that had $100,000, maybe more, in the stock, saying, hey, it's going to NASDAQ, it's doing this and that. Company wasn't active on Twitter. They would just issue filings and so forth. But there was always breadcrumbs of good things to come. So, they announced that they're going to be doing a reverse split, which completely just killed the stock. Was it over the course of a night? Was it in the morning? Yeah, I think it was after hours it hit. And, what was it, a penny? Around a penny, drops all the way down to 002, 001. It said it had a little bit of a bounce, but the thing is, they haven't even split yet, so I don't even know what's going on with that. But it's strange to put that on filing, saying we want to, bring different shareholders in. We want to have, have a more attractive to shareholders, if we have a larger price. So I think the reverse split is going to push it up, near 80 cents, $1, 50 cents, whatever. But either way, we're still waiting on that, see if anything comes, maybe filings will come. But sad day to see, because I know a lot of people really believed in that stock, and it's always tough. But number 2, this one hurt a lot of people, and a lot of people believed in it, and it's a shame because of what they announced afterwards, and that's CYBL, or as I say, Sybil. Nobody really saw this one coming. This was kind of like the darling of penny stocks. I know some people didn't like it, some hated it, some bashed it. But, their growth plan was huge, and I know they had some dilution and this and that, but, they were growing, so, regardless. But they got hit with a caveat emptor, and I'm not sure if it had something to do with the filings. We're not here to cover the speculation of what it was, what it wasn't, but they got hit with caveat emptor, and I know they're trying to work with OTC to try and get that off, but then they announced, a week after, that they had a government contract, through Ukraine and the drones, and there's been more coming about that recently, and it's a shame because, it not only did shareholders get crushed in that, but, the people on those filings and, as far as management and everybody else and all of these companies, the same thing. They have a lot of common shares too, so they're shareholders too, and they get hurt. It's always a bummer to see. So that one definitely stung. It was a sad day that Friday that CYBL got the caveat emptor. But so we're going to move into our number 1 spot. And this is actually a trio. So very similar to CYBL. This is ICOA, AAPT, and MJWL. So these 3 got caveat emptored on the same day. And the amount of money that was put into these stocks that a lot of shareholders had, so it wasn't like one stock got hit. All 3 got hit, same time, all skull and crossbones heading into the weekend, and it really shocked a lot of people. I don't think OTC volume came back for a couple months. A lot of people got really shook off that. And, I know ICOA and MJWL have been kind of working towards, I think AAP too, moved into a different shell merger. But they've been working over the past year to try and either get, spin-off done, or I know ICOA is trying to, get their caveat emptor taken care of through filings and whatever. But, just wanted to share that list with you guys today. So that's my top 10 disasters in 2022. So if you have any that you want to mention, definitely put them down below. Make sure you like the video. Like I said, we'll move from the down and upsetting video, and then we'll move into the top 10 best runners of 2022. That way we can look back at it and say, wow, remember that? So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time.